Hi everybody, we are here at DePaul University at the first King Singers US summer camp, summer school. We're here with all these participants. Do you want to scroll down to show everybody? And here on the stage we have Bob Chilcott and the King Singers. So we will take some questions from our live studio audience. And if you have any questions out there on the internet, please submit them and we will have somebody relay them to the stage. All right, so questions from the audience. Nothing. Yes.
So good ensemble, of course King Singer doesn't have vibrato. When you sing, we tend to so how can we eliminate vibrato?
So how do you all eliminate vibrato when you sing as an ensemble?
It's a very good question. We make a conscious decision for the majority of the time to sing without vibrato and have a straight tone, but we do employ a tone with vibrato when it's necessary to do so. That might be when someone has a solo. It might be appropriate to just add a bit of colour to the voice, or as an effect for all of us to do at the same time. But as one of my colleagues says, much like ketchup, it's something that you might not add to everything. And so that's just a decision that we make ourselves. But it does take some skill to try and sing with a straight tone, and it can be vocally tiring, so you have to find a healthy way to do that. Thank you.
Yes, and the Green Stripes.
What are your favorite a cappella groups that are not the King Singers?
Favorite a cappella groups that are not the King Singers?
This is a difficult question. Favorite a cappella groups that are not the King Singers? I like lots. I'm a big fan of what Pentatonics do, because I think that they are a pop a cappella group with real skill. Actually, if you take the microphones away, and you take the effects away, actually it's still a fantastic group. And they do so many things that are vital for choral performance. They're in tune, they have good diction, they have good rhythm, they make good sounds. So I really love their music as well, but actually I think that when we think of pop a cappella, we think of things that aren't necessarily that kind of, if you strip it down, it's not as impressive as it sounds, and I think they are.
I think I'd have to say the real group, to be honest. And they were a group that I knew when I was at school. And I think the King Singers taught them a long time ago. Is that right, Bob?
We did a festival in London, actually for 2 years, and we invited them, I think 1987, it was a great gig. They were just starting out and they were great then, actually.
We had a request for you to speak up, so people online can hear.
Okay, so I knew the real group when I was back at school, and I always thought they were fantastic, great fun, and I got to university and started singing their arrangements alongside some King Singers arrangements, and a couple of years ago we were headlining ACGA in Salt Lake City, and we found out that they were going to be joint headlines with us. So despite the fact we knew them, we'd sung with them before, it was really great to share a stage with them, to share a performance. And I think they're so classy, they're fantastic, and also Anders Inrold is one of the finest arrangers. They're so classy, his songs and his arrangements, so that would be my answer.
I'm a big fan of Take 6, and if you're watching Take 6, which is probably likely or unlikely, it would be lovely to meet you sometime. It's just a wee fanboy.
I'm actually a really big fan of a group with whom we have many friends in it, which wasn't very grammar. But Bob Chilcott, I've got a few friends in there, and I really like what they're doing and how much they've grown in the last few years. So it's really exciting for when I'm back home as well. Meet up with a couple of them for coffee and stuff. It's really cool to compare stories. So yeah.
For me, the group which is closest to my heart, apart from the King Singers, is a group close friends that I left behind in my previous job at St George's Chapel in Windsor, and the group is called Queen's Six, and it's exactly the same makeup as us. 2 countertenors, 1 tenor, 2 baritones and a bass, and they're made up of my past colleagues, and they're doing really well for themselves, and it's always nice when other groups sing King Singers music. It's always good.
For me, I would like to choose not a group, but some of my favourite a cappella music that's happening at the moment is by a man called Jacob Collier. He's from London, and depressingly, he's a couple of years younger than I am, I think. But he makes music on his own. He records himself and overdubs the different parts. I don't know if you guys have seen his videos or heard his album, but he won a Grammy recently for the best arrangement that was released last year. And he is a real harmonic wizard. He does crazy things with harmony, and he's vocally extremely agile. And he looks a little bit like me as well. So that's good. So that's that, I think.
Oh, Bob, sorry. That's so nice. Thank you. I like lots of groups, but I've always enjoyed, because they're good friends to a Finnish group called Riaton. I think they're wonderful. And the group that I listen to more than anybody, I'm sorry, even more than the King Singers, is an early music group from England. And I think actually Tim has sung with them, a group called Stile Antico. And I love them. Very, very fine group. And so I think probably they're the two I like the most.
So we have a question from the internet for Bob. It's actually a 2-part question. So the first part is, how does it feel seeing what this group has become?
Oh, no. It's absolutely great. My instant feeling when I hear the King Singers is I can't possibly have sung in a group like that because they're far too good. I was just saying to someone we were in another room just now, I think, this group has really, they've moved it on all the time, and they're very, very clever with the choices of music and the way that they sing. And I look on the people my predecessors, and also the people who have sung since me in the tenor section, and I thought, well, if I could have sung if I could have sung as well as Julian, I think I'd have been a very happy man. So that's that's my feeling, and I mean that. I think he's a wonderful singer. Because the tenor part is a very hard part in this group, because you have to bridge the gap between the countertenor sound and the lower sound. And you have to navigate it. I did it by having quite a workable falsetto. And so I cheated my way for 12 years. But there are certain parts in this group where you have to navigate, and I think the tenor has a tough role, but he can do it just by singing well. So well done, Julian. That's my answer.
And the second part of the question, this is from Erica Steed. When you compose for the group, do you start writing the piece knowing it's for the group, or is it something that it morphs into?
That's a very good question, because actually I've been writing for 20 years now just for choirs. And when the group asked me a few years ago to write a piece which ended up being called Swimming Over London, I really struggled to get back into the frame of writing for the group, because the group has a very particular sound and a very particular ambience, and the way that the voices interrelate. And I had to really, it took me a long time to do that. I've really enjoyed the challenge of writing for the group, because when I sang in it, I found that it was easier in a sense to navigate the sound that was around at the time. But I found since that it's a challenge, and a very nice challenge actually, because it's about the character of the group and what it stands for and the responsibility that each person takes for how they operate within the group. And that's a great challenge, actually, as a writer, to come up to what that stands for. So anyway, I can try.
Do we have another question from the audience? Right there.
So you've spoken to us about other groups that you enjoy listening to. What do you consider to be your main points of difference from those groups?
So what do you think are your main points of difference from other a cappella groups?
It's a good question. I think what makes the King Singers unique is probably the heritage and the origins of the group. Most other groups that we know don't necessarily have a common point, a common starting point, I suppose. And the King Singers were so deeply informed by the fact that those original guys, who are choral scholars at King's College in Cambridge, which had a particular style of singing because of David Wilcox, the director there. And they took that style, and they took that ethos of a lot of discipline, both in the way that they worked, but in the way they presented themselves to the world, the stagecraft, the neat 6 music stands, and the very British humour and outlook on life. And they distilled it into its essential parts. And I believe that they spent years honing that craft before it was properly presented in 1968 to the world, through trial and error, really. But they had the right sorts of brains between those 6 guys. And even now, we look forward to going back to King's Chapel in Cambridge, because it's always felt like our spiritual home, really. And I think it's that sort of common starting point which, for me, sets the group apart, because it informs everything that we've done. Even though we change with the times and we develop, and we embrace new styles of music and new ways of doing business, as it were, everything's underpinned by that common understanding. And I think really for me that's what sets us apart sometimes.
Just from my thinking, I mean, I totally agree. I think that that basis is rare, to have come from one base and to share one kind of identity. To share one identity, and I have a very loud voice normally. But I also think that now, with that common ground, actually it's the variety which has always existed in what the group's done. I would say that there are lots of groups who have come from similar institutions, like Cambridge, and you think of all the King's College Choir, the New College Choir, all of these places that we've sung, and all these choirs we've sung. But actually, there are very few with that basis that have done everything from kind of crazy pop from the present time. I mean, some of the stuff the King Singers did in 1968 through the 1970s and 80s. A video of Bohemian Rhapsody on TV, that Obadi Obada by Darryl Brunswick, where it looks like it could be the Clockwork Orange. I mean, it's mad. And that, at the same time as Tallis and Bird, that's rare. And I think that being able to maintain both prongs, or rather kind of all the prongs really, at the same time is the thing that's marked the group out. I mean, all the other groups we've spoken about, with probably the exception of Voces 8 and maybe the Queen 6, all of them have one specialism, really. If you think of pentatonics, it's a very produced poppy sound. If you think about the real group, it's folk jazz. The King Singers have always had more than that, I think.
We have a question from a music major here at DePaul, Jacqueline Robertson. She says, what advice would you all give to college music students? And is having a professional career in music what you thought it would be like?
It's a difficult one. This is different for every person, and there's no one bit of blanket advice that you can give to someone studying music. For me, I can only speak on behalf of myself. 2 parts to the question. Firstly, what advice would I give? For what we do, oral skills and being a quick musician are really crucial. For me, I attribute any skill I've got in that department to improvising. I used to sit down at the piano when I was younger. Even if I didn't know a piece, or if I'd heard a song, whatever, I would sit down at the piano and try and work it out. And through that process, I learned how chords worked, I learned a bit about voice leading, and you just develop your sense of pitch and rhythm and harmony. And that has been really helpful to me before I started even sort of formal training. Second part of the question was professional music what I expected it to be? This is a very particular type of professional music making, in that we're on the road so much of the year. And for me, as a fairly new member, it's still a case of getting used to it and the crazy speed of life and the amount of things we're juggling at one time. I think, I don't want to sound wise beyond my years, but I think the modern professional musician also has to be, to some extent, a good business person. You've got to know who your audience is and how best to appeal to them, and to be able to exist in the modern world while still, plugging your trade. So that's my 2 pennies worth.
All right, Jane Heddich asks, how do you count down to start singing without it being obvious?
For those of us watching online, we had a big laugh from the whole room because they've been pestered by the 7 of us about breathing together, and maybe Tim can illustrate this.
There's no specific countdown that we have in our minds before we come in, but there is, after I blow with the note on this wonderful pitch pipe, as a group, we call it the golden moment. So there'll be a moment of silence, and this is before any piece, a slapstick funny piece or a very serious piece of Renaissance music. There's always that element of silence, and the breath happens. How do we breathe together at the same time? Something to bear in mind is we do this so many times for 120, 130 shows each year. We have up to a 2-hour rehearsal for every concert. So that's a lot of hours, just the 6 of us breathing together. You get to know each other so well. Some of us are more physical than others in terms of the breath, but it's a very physical, like we've been talking about this week. Singing is such a physical act. So, in answer to your question, breathe, there's no countdown, but wait for that moment of silence. And you'll feel when it's ready. You'll feel when it's right, and it just takes practice. And there's been some groups this week that have found it easier than others, but I think we're all at a really good level now. Thank you.
Yes, back there.
Question especially for Bob. It's true you're only as old as you feel, but there are realities. How do you know, and for David Burley and others you know, how do you know as a keen singer when it's time to step aside, both physically as a singer, but also emotionally as a team member?
So if you didn't hear that in the internet, how do you know when it's time for you to step aside out of the group, both either physically or emotionally?
I'm not sure about that, actually. That's a very tough question. I think in David Hurley's case, he was an astonishing singer. To sing in this group for 25 years, to the 26 years, to the level that he did, singing the top part. And the top part is a huge responsibility, isn't it? When you're a tenor, in the middle, you can just sort of, you can hide. But I think I'll pass this on to someone else, because I think it's a tough question, actually. I felt it was time for me to move on. I always wanted to be a composer, but I just knew it was time for me to go. Lots of reasons, but it just felt right at the right time. It was difficult, but it did feel right.
I think that's it, really. I think every individual is different in every way, and your life changes enormously, and in some ways it passes you by a bit while you're in the King's Singers, and times change, and I imagine you get to a point where you know that it's just right, it feels right in your gut to have the next chapter, the next adventure in life. The group's it's an incredible career, and it's a wonderful family to be part of, and it gives so many blessings, and of course being able to live your dream and tour the world and sing with 5 excellent musicians is, a wonderful thing to do. But I guess there's always, I've seen 5 of my colleagues move on. I think there's always a point where they reach a moment of realization that it's time to do something else. And to a man, they've been happy about it. I haven't really seen anybody move on and feel bad. And it's wonderful to watch them go out into the world and do whatever it is they go out to do. We keep in touch with them and they remain part of the family. So it's a positive thing in the end.
Andrea Niederman has requested that you talk about your 50th anniversary.
I know the idea that I'm talking about it because I'm 50 or something. It's our 50th anniversary in 2018, which is wonderful because it's testament to all the amazing work that previous King Singers and previous people who've worked with the King Singers have done to allow this group to keep going. The point of an anniversary, from our point of view, shouldn't be just to look backwards, but to also use it as a moment of reflection to see how best to move forwards. So I think it's really important to us next year when we're celebrating our anniversary, and we're really, really lucky. We're going all over the world, and we've got, well over 150 anniversary concerts, taking us everywhere from New Zealand through to the west coast of America. We've got so many time zones and so many places, which is amazing. But the point is, staying true to who we are, to our core values, to embodying everything about where the groups come from, like Chris was saying, still singing as much music as we can, doing everything we can to make great music shine as brightly as possible, but also seeing, where is the world now, and how can we make the world a better place, both as people and as musicians, and that's really cool, being in a place where the spotlight's put on you because it's an anniversary that you happen to be there for, and say, well, okay, this is where acapella music is, this is where choral music is, what difference can we make? How can we spread it up? How can we improve the craft? And so that's really what next year's about. We're calling it our gold season, because there's no obvious title to call an anniversary year. Gold means something in almost every language and every currency. On one end you have gold medals, gold is a currency, but gold is also a colour associated with victory and associated with anniversaries and stuff. So that's why we're calling that. But there's a three-disc album which celebrates music from across our repertoire. There is this world tour, there is a commemorative book, there are going to be songbooks, there are special kind of deluxe editions of all of these things, and 6 King Singers who are really, really excited about carrying the torch through the year. So please come and watch us. And also we should take the chance to say this. We are obviously doing summer schools this year in the States and in England. But next year you will also have the chance to sing with us, people here and people abroad. We are doing a very exciting concert next year in Carnegie Hall on the 22nd of April. Where we are joined by 2 illustrious former King Singers on stage, one of whom you might be able to guess. And the other one is Simon Carrington, and it's being hosted by Distinguished Concerts International New York, DCINY. You can find all the information online already, but it's going to be a weekend of rehearsal and performance in the Stern Auditorium on the main stage of Carnegie Hall, celebrating some of the great music that the King Singers have written for them and have celebrated over our 50-year history, and being part of something that will hopefully be very magical. So please come and do that. All the information is online. I'll stop talking.
So a little bit of a tie-in to that. You talked about how much you're going to be touring in 2018. Ethan Mazzio asks, what's your favorite touring experience, and is there any place that you haven't toured that you'd like to?
Okay, what are you down by? Great question. For me, I think the most moving thing we've done in my time so far was doing a workshop of religious music at the Wayne-Wright Cathedral in Beijing. I'm sure a lot of you will know that there is a very strong division between kind of religion and the state in China. So you can't perform the Messiah and various other things. And we had special dispensation both to be in the Wayne-Wright Cathedral, which is usually closed to the public, and doing a workshop of sacred music with Chinese choirs. And I just remember being absolutely speechless the whole time and thinking, oh my God, God, how is this happening? How are we being allowed to do this and hear this music sung by these people? So that's probably the experience. And then the play, I would love to go to the subcontinent. The group's never been, I think in its whole history, it's never been to India, it's never been to Sri Lanka, it's never been anywhere sort of between Russia and places like Armenia until you get to the Far East. So that's high on my list.
I think probably the prom that we did in 2008 for our 40th birthday in London, part of the BBC prom series in Royal Albert Hall, which has always been my favourite venue in the world ever since I was a child and singing there for Christmas concerts. That was really special because it was a home crowd, and we don't do that many concerts in England, so to go to a packed Royal Albert Hall and have that broadcast was great fun. But on another level, we did a concert in Chile a couple of years ago, in a place called Frutia, and it was in a concert hall which had a glass backstage, and in the audience you looked down over the performers across the lake and to the mountains, and it was the most stunning venue. It was a wonderful place. And on that theme, I would like to go to Argentina and perform there, and we haven't been there yet. So maybe in the future.
Oh, well, I think probably what I remember most vividly is singing in Berlin the night after the Berlin Wall came down. We just happened to be there, and we sang. We sang in the concert house, and it was fantastic. And I remember we sang as an encore, "It's a New World," and it was, and I'll never forget that.
I take your Berlin Wall and I raised you in New Zealand. I remember singing in my old high school in 2014, and there was a real sense standing on that stage where I had been a teacher at assemblies and concerts. You know, I had spent 11 years of my life at that school, both as a student and then as a teacher, and then to come back full circle as a member of the King Sings. I just remember a real sense of, wow, this is where I'm at now. And so that was a very special moment, particularly having my family in the audience as well. And I'm pretty keen to head on that South American thing to Venezuela. And also, really love to go, second Chris, on Argentina. So if anyone is listening in South America, please invite us. We would very much like to come, and let's get your people talking to our people. All right?
I think for me, my favourite place we've been to so far has been South Africa. We went in February this year, and it was the first time that King Singers had been in 20 years. So it's quite a sort of momentous occasion for the group. But also for me, that was my first time visiting anywhere in the Southern Hemisphere. So that was quite a bit of a realisation when we landed. I was like, oh yeah, this is actually sort of south. And it was sort of crazy. Because often we get arrived at the airport and forget what destination you're going to when you're checking in, and you have to look it up on the schedule. But yeah, so that was great. And a lot of our partners and loved ones came out as well, so that was really nice to unusually have a tour which was a little bit less concert heavy, a little bit less packed, concise with engagements, but a little bit more spread out, and enabled us to, we were hosted by some wonderful people from Bob University, and so that was an amazing experience, and yeah, seeing such a beautiful country, so that was my favourite place. And the place where I'd like to go, I'd really like to go to Hawaii with the group, because it is the one state, the US state, that the group hasn't been to yet. So it's been to all the others. And of course, Hawaii seems like a wonderful exotic location. And apparently it's got a wonderful choral scene there, so I'd love to get stuck in and see what's going on.
On the same tour that Chris B was talking about to New Zealand, we went to Australia, and the concert, I think, the one I'll never forget, was the Sydney Opera House. Walking out onto the stage there was pretty head in the back of your neck sort of moment. It was a mixture of sheer terror and sheer excitement. I'd love to go back again to Iceland. We sang in Reykjavik. They've got a wonderful, wonderful concert hall called Harpa, and the backstage food there was unbelievable. But yes, but again, South America is a very special place to me. My mum is from South America, at the top, from British Guyana. So anywhere around there, Venezuela as well, that would tick my box too.
Can I just jump in? Just one thing I remember what Jules was saying. Fine, of course. So, when Jules was saying you were hosted by the University of Rochester, I just remember something amazing which is worth bolstering. I was just getting my phone out to look for a picture, which I found here. And it was a poster that was hanging in the University of Rochester backstage space when the group was there in 1986. And it's a poster for the King Singers concert, and it just says the King Singers the crown of it, and then it says all races welcome in 1986. And I just find it, like, just talking about kind of, amazing places to go and experiences, the idea that the King Singers were part of a kind of wanting to be part of a kind of a growing, accepting society. That's just like an amazing snapshot of the past, isn't it? Sorry, anyway, just that photo still moves me looking at it.
Second. For me, I mean, I've got not that many. I've done, I think, 85 concerts thus far, so fewer to choose from. But for me, I think the final concert of our most recent tour at Christmas to the USA, we finished the tour, as we often do, in Washington National Cathedral. And it's a beautiful, beautiful building. I visited lots of times with different tours, and it never fails to take one's breath away. And again, a similar feeling to Tim, walking out and just seeing this absolute sea of faces in this beautiful building at the end of a long and tough tour through the winter. It was a really special thing. Yeah, that's my favourite. And I would like to go to Iceland, because the group went to Iceland and did that Harpa Hall concert just before my time. And so I'd like to go back there and taste this food, which is so
Carrie Nix says, my 3-year-old is dying for me to tell you that he loves the King Singers but loves his daddy more.
Philip is a tenor on our summer school, and I believe that's his wife. He's written in, hello, and your husband's fine and well. We're looking after him.
We have a, yes, right here, Gregory.
So, you guys travel so much, I imagine that you get stressed and kind of on each other's nerves. So, what is it you guys do as a group? What do you guys as a group do to get rid of that kind of negativity and like to make the performance better? You know what I mean?
So, what do you do to get rid of the stress and negativity when you start to get on each other's nerves?
It's an interesting one, because the purpose of our tours is to make music, is to perform to people from all over the world, and to spread the love, and to show people a little bit of what we've grown up in the British choral tradition. But also, hopefully, we do a lot of, we sing a lot of postcards, which are sort of pieces of music from the country we're visiting, in order to, partly to show our love and admiration for the music and the culture that they have there, but also as a sort of, bit of gesture to say that we've taken time to really get to know some of your music and we love it. So that's the kind of the focus. And then all the stuff that happens around it, the off-stage stuff. It's amazing how well it works, actually, the system. I think when you're choosing a new person, I've been one of those recently, you have to try to look for someone who will be able to be professional, friendly, open-minded, kind, considerate. And if you have those qualities, then naturally, when you have times which are a little bit stressful, or, someone, if your loved one's maybe ill at home or had a bad day or whatever, you have to be able to kind of just respect and empathise other people's, less ideal conditions. And, and I think if you kind of can try and effervesce a certain positivity, I used that word earlier in our session, then it can really, you can bounce that great good energy around, and it can just help to make everything a little bit more buoyant. So yeah, I think the aim is to try to give each other that sort of lift, but also but in doing that by being in and of yourself positive and kind of willing to try to improve things constantly. So yeah, it's a bit of a psychological thing that you have to figure out, actually, to be honest, when you join, because everyone's different. But yeah, you figure out your own way, and that's kind of how it goes.
I would also say, this is as one of the world's greatest, most unrealistic optimists, you have to be realistic. I don't think my colleagues will believe me saying this. But we do get really, really well, but there are moments, like, if you spend 15 hours potentially in each other's company, actually just having a bit of space is great. So we don't sit next to each other on every plane journey we take. We don't have every meal together as a six. You know, we don't share bedrooms. You know, it's weird like that. You know, I think that is also crucial. You know, that actually one of the reasons that the engine is like so healthy is because I think we give it time to rest as well. I can't believe I just said that.
As someone who, I was in the group for 12 years, and we talked about this bit, these guys, in the way the group works now, they have a lot more pressure than we did. The whole social media thing, the whole thing of taking care of everything, the whole computer thing, phone thing, which is with you all the time. When I used to be in the group, I used to meet David Hurley for breakfast and then say, do you want to go and have a cup of coffee? So we'd go and have a cup of coffee, and then say, do you want to go and have a bit of lunch? We'd go and have a bit of lunch. And that was the day. And occasionally a fax would come through that you had to discuss. And it was, in a way, it was a lot easier. I think there's a lot of pressure on these guys, and I have to say, I mean this absolutely sincerely, these guys handle it absolutely brilliantly. They really do. They are a total example of how to do this, because it's not easy. You know, they all have families, so a lot of them have families and people at home, and there's a whole thing that one has to take care of. And these guys do it absolutely brilliantly. I think this lineup is one of the most equitable you'll ever know from this group. I think I say that without any favour.
Austin Taylor Smith asks, when you travel, how do you stay fit and healthy?
We all, not the dogs, how do we stay fit and healthy? It's a very personal thing. We all do this job in 6 different ways, but the sort of common theme that runs through is we try and sleep as much as we can. We drink a lot of water on tour, and we try to get as early nights as possible. If you're on a 2-week tour of Italy and the concert starts at 9 o'clock in the evening, you're not going to be going to bed any earlier after signing than midnight or 1 o'clock, especially if the promoter takes you out for dinner, which has 8 courses. But yeah, it's just looking after yourself. We all like going to the gym when we can, or going running in a new city when we've got a spare second. But it's just being sensible and knowing your own body. When you start this job, nothing can truly prepare you for how busy life is. And always, and I have to pat this out to all of us, within the first sort of 6 months, you always get crook. You always get crook. Your immune system is saying, WTF. What are you doing to me? Because just nothing can prepare you for it. It's such a tough job off stage and on stage. So yeah, that'll be my point.
I remember very vividly, it wasn't so long ago, back in October when I first started doing touring and getting into the regular cycle of flying a lot, that every time I'd get back from a trip abroad and get home, I'd be totally wiped out for the day. I'd go up to bed, not even take my clothes off, just lie there and pass out until dinner time basically. And I thought, oh my lord, I'm not cut out for this. But it's bizarre how quickly one's body which is an amazing thing, can adapt and get used to a certain way of life. So now I'm not phased at all. I don't think any of us are phased by flights. But it's a real shock to the system when you start, because it's unlike any other pursuit.
Yes, back there.
For Kat, do you have a particular key singer's repertoire piece that you are either nervous to have to learn or that you really want to learn that you haven't learned yet?
So do you have a piece that you're nervous to learn or want to learn?
Yes, I've got the same piece to answer both questions, actually. I have not yet done with the group Masterpiece by Bob Chilcott. I'm sure lots of you have seen it. It's a well-viewed video of the groups on YouTube. It's an amazing piece, it lasts about 10 minutes and sort of charts the course of Western music. It's hilarious and I cannot wait to have a crack at it. But I'm also nervous because I've grown up seeing a fantastic version of it and it's very long and not easy. So there you go.
John Lynn asks, my son will be starting college in the fall singing in the School of Music. Besides avoiding lozenges, anything else that he can do to take care of his voice?
I would encourage him to drink as much water as he can. The thing with lozenges is that it depends on what kind of lozenges they are, because one thing that we must always be aware of are any lozenges that have the ability to dull any pain, and they're particularly useful if you have a cough or a sore throat. They have that anesthetic ability, and that's great. When you're a singer, that's really not great, because if you are not aware that you are in pain, then you shouldn't be singing, because if there is some inflammation and you're singing on top of that without realizing that it's painful because of these lozenges, you can do more damage. So I would just stick to the tried and tested method of lots of water and lots of sleep, as Tim said. And we don't really drink alcohol very much at all, and no one smokes, and that's just a choice that we make because we don't have any backups. It's just us. So we kind of trust each other to look after each other and look after ourselves.
In the red shirt.
As gig singers, how do you manage your private life? Is there still time for family and friends?
How do you manage your private lives?
With difficulty. I'm newly married, and it's challenging when I see these guys more than my wife. No offense to you guys, but I would rather see my wife. I'm really looking forward to seeing her. It's not easy being away on the road 200 days a year, and even if you're home 160 days, it never feels like that. So you just have to be supportive and spend as much quality time as you can. We couldn't do this job without them, and they need to know that. And we sort of owe it to them that we are able to live our dreams, knowing that one day we get to spend time with our dream girls, and we'll give this job a rest and spend more quality time at home. But it's a work-life balance that everyone in every form of life has to work through, and there are good days and there are not so good days, and you have to be supportive to everyone involved.
Bradley Stackhampton asks, how do you decide your set list in a concert?
We do most of our work by committee, so we do it all together. We're often asked, do you have a musical director? Do you have a leader? Is anybody in charge? And the answer is no. Whether it comes to planning concerts that we accept and concerts that we decline, or what we sing at those concerts, it's all a group process. We have people who lead all of these areas. We each have an area of responsibility on stage, and that person will liaise with our management and our agent community to find out if there are any specific requests from promoters, or if the festival at which we might be singing has a specific theme. And we try as much as possible to fit in with the requests that may come our way. But at the end of the day, this particular line is trying really hard to limit the number of different programs we sing. There was certainly a time, a decade or so ago, where we were coming up with bespoke programs for every single concert, and it meant that you were doing over 100 variations of programs a year, and you were singing hundreds of pieces of music. And that's fine, we could do it, because we had a patch after I joined of 5 years with no changes. So we knew each other, we knew the reps so well that we could be quite bespoke. But the way the group is now, we've chosen deliberately, probably because of the extra workload Bob was talking about, that we want to have a dozen or so programs each season that we sell. And we come up with them ourselves, and they're very concept driven, so they work, and the flow is very good, we believe. And we pick music very carefully. And these are the programs that we like to offer to promoters, so that they come from program meetings. The only thing that we don't regularly program is the close harmony, the final group of songs in each concert, which is the chance for us to pick and choose. And in fact, we go down the line. Each successive concert, we choose whose group it is. And that member tells us how many times we're going to bow, and when we're going to sing an encore, and what that encore is going to be, and the order of the last group of songs. And that's a personal choice. So you'll find that each individual singer has different favourites, and he gets his chance every 6th term to suggest what we might sing.
So we have about 4 minutes left, so maybe one more question right there.
So do you guys ever get nerves or stage fright, and how do you get over that?
So do you get nervous, stage fright, and how do you get over that?
You might get 6 answers, I'll kick off. I don't get nervous for walking on stage and singing anymore, unless there are specific parameters in play, I suppose. I get nervous if I have some family members there. I get nervous if it's quite a small, intimate audience, and I know that they're very knowledgeable about a particular type of music. We did a disc, actually they did it just before I arrived, which was the Jazz Welder Tenor Responsories. Amazing music, incredibly difficult to sing. And we've done half a dozen performances, I think, in our time, perhaps more, where we've done the entire responsories, including intoning the Bible readings in between the 3 triptychs and the benedictions at the end. And it's the hardest sing, I think, I've ever agreed. And those concerts make me nervous. We did a live radio broadcast in King's, Cambridge, of that rep, and that was hard. But really, to get over it, you just say to yourself, I know this, and I can do it. And ultimately, there are 2 types of excitement of nerves. There's nerves from unpreparedness, which is bad. And there are nerves from excitement. And those nerves can be really productive and positive. So I channel it towards that excitement. This is my answer.
Yeah, my answer is very, very similar. But I find there are most concerts, and actually in some really, really prestigious venues, huge venues, I'm absolutely fine. I get a real buzz out of performing. The very, very famous world venues. I remember stepping out on the main stage of Carnegie Hall the first time we were there, and thinking, oh goodness, this is great. But I actually really surprised myself the other day. We did it. We sang at the 70th birthday party for a guy called Darryl Brunswick, who's arranged so much music for King Singers. So Barbara Smith arrangement, Blackbird, and loads of these you'll know. And we sang 7 songs at the end of the concert. There were only about 350 people in the audience. It wasn't huge by any stretch of the imagination. I walked on stage and was absolutely terrified, because there are people, it was about that knowledgeability thing, people who've known the group for years, people who really understood his music, people who loved his music, him who wrote the music we were singing. So it's kind of a perfect storm. So from that point of view, yeah, really, really terrifying. But I've sung in that same venue so many times and it's been fine otherwise. So it's the context.
Oh yeah, I got nervous lots of times. The funny thing was, I remember once we sang a piece by Ned Rorem that he wrote for the group, very good piece, about the Civil War diaries of War Whitman, very good piece, and it had a big tenor lead, and I had laryngitis, I was not in good shape. And we came off before that piece and I thought, I can't sing. Do you know, I went on and I managed to sing, and I thought I was, terrible. I came off, and some woman came up to me afterwards. She said, "You know, I've heard that piece many times. I've never heard you sing it so well." It's funny, you know, you can fool them in case you didn't.
All right, well, I think we're out of time. Thank you for everyone online who tuned in. Sorry we couldn't get to all of your questions. Thank you all for being here for the summer school here in the U.S. Thank you for coming to Greencastle, Indiana. Thank you all for being here. It's an honor to have you back at DePaul. And if you're close to Greencastle, the King Singers will be in concert tomorrow night at 7:30. Greencastle, Indiana, DePaul University, Kresge Auditorium. You can get tickets online at music.depaul.edu or on Eventbrite. And then Sunday at 3 o'clock, all the participants will be singing here at DePaul at Meharry Hall. Those tickets are free. So thank you, and we hope to see you at the concert tomorrow night.